How often do we drive a car, then we gaze out the windshield 10 minutes later and we realize, I've been driving for the past 10 minutes and I haven't even consciously realized that I've been driving. It's as Alan Watts says, that the mind is a good servant but a bad master. If we're just living in our mind, if the mind is the master, it's easy to accept these thoughts as like absolute truths. We're usually just thinking. How often are we sensing? We came into the world as a sentient being, but how often are we actually using those senses? I think nature-based mindfulness is connecting with our sensations, our feelings, our emotions, our experiences in the present moment, but with a specific orientation to nature. There's a lot of different ways we can sense. What can we hear? What can we listen to? Are there birds chirping? Can we feel the sun? The more we're experiencing the world around us, the more we're participating, the deeper bond we develop. And if we develop a deep relationship with nature, then it gives us an opportunity to come back, to return to more grounded footing. There's a lot of reasons it's important for well-being, for our ecological crises. The modern age is really defined by consumerism. We buy something new and we feel better, we feel more adequate. Like the old stuff must have felt inadequate, like this sweater isn't good enough so I need to buy a new one. I feel pleasure I got from this sweater. But the problem is that pleasure won't always last. Soon the new sweater won't feel as good as it did when I first bought it. All the products we get are derived from nature. And nature isn't infinite. We live in a finite playing field. Once we, extract all the oil on the ground, all the oil's gone. Once we take out all the trees from the Amazon, all the trees in the Amazon are gone. So nature can't support infinite economic growth. It can't support exponentially increasing consumerism. With meditation, with mindfulness, it's been linked to more internal contentment, more lasting happiness, much different from pleasure because it's lasting. If we have this internal contentment, then we don't need to seek for it in external things. It's as the psychologist Eric Fromm says, we go on with all the destruction in the world because we don't love the world. Well, maybe it's because we're caught up in our own problems, and when we're really overthinking what bothers us, we don't have the space for expansive thinking. But when we work through our individual emotional issues, we grow a capacity to deal with larger problems. Climate change is one of the first instances in all of evolutionary history that the world is truly connected by one problem, that a problem is truly at a global and planetary scale. And so to be able to think about like real big picture solutions and systemic changes, we need to create more mental space. We're walking down the street, and even though our bodies are here right now, our minds might be straying to distant lands, thinking, what did I do wrong yesterday? What is bothering me about what I have to do tomorrow? We're on autopilot. We're walking down the street, but we're not really conscious in the fact that we're walking down the street. We're sleepwalking. We could say right now that our ecological crises is in part due to this mindlessness, this unattentiveness to what our actions do and how they affect the natural world. But when we start to become more present, less on autopilot, less sleepwalking, we become more conscious participators in our actions. Whether we know it or not, we're all victims of this thing called cultural conditioning, where we have influence from our parents, from the media, from our friends, from teachers. We're surrounded by other people's perspectives and ideas of success and what's appropriate and what's not, and over time these influence what do we think is appropriate or not. We don't often get a lot of time with just ourselves. Spending time in meditation is intimate presence with our headspace, where we're reviewing our thoughts. So usually we think, that's good, that's bad, that's right, that's wrong. we bring a non-judgmental relationship to our thoughts. And over time, we get to develop our own value system. One of the dominant narratives of modern times is that it's our destiny, our goal to keep building more, to keep advancing. But this mindset is at the expense of the other 8 million species. Americans spend 90% of our time indoors. 90% indoors. And that other 10%, is that like really to be outside, or is that to walk from one place indoors to the other place indoors? But also, 60% of the global population lives in urban environments, so environments that were made just for one species, just for humans. It's no longer an implicit part of our lives to just be connected to nature, to be able to walk in grass, to see trees, to connect with the world that isn't only human. There's a whole other world out there also to connect with. And I think the more we connect with it, the more we just have our own experiences, our own direct contact. The more we're developing a bond with the natural world, the more incentivized we feel to be better ecological stewards, to leave the place in better hands. If we want to talk about shifting away from capitalism and colonialism and exploitative mindsets, they always will need to be perspective change. And for me, that's where all the actions follow from. A place of deep understanding and value for the world we're living in. I hope I can remind people their love, their bond, their innate connection with the natural world, and from there, all of our actions can follow, all of our solutions can follow. Thank you.